Husband refused to take in his Ab-sed, estranged daughter, so I insisted, causing a heated argument and possible turning point. My husband and I are currently coming down from a heated argument, emotions still swirling in the air. He called me a few things, asshole among them, and now everything feels like a mess. I needed to clear my head, because we're going in circles and I feel alone in my reasoning. Here's the long story. My husband had a daughter in his early 20s with his ex-girlfriend. Their relationship was terrible, lots of fighting, emotional abuse, total incompatibility, so they split up just before the baby was born. He was always honest with me about his past. He regrets not taking better precautions, regrets their immaturity, regrets the fallout. Ever since, he's been a bystander in his daughter's life. Her mother kept her away from him, made it clear he had no place at all. Sure, he paid child support the entire time, but it's been an uphill battle all through our relationship. By the time I met him, he'd matured a lot and was ready to settle down for real. When we had our first child together, his ex tried to wring out more child support. If he can afford a new kid, he can afford to pay up, she said. Every conversation with her is nasty, and she raised their daughter to feel the same way. My husband tried to build some kind of bridge, just a phone call at Christmas, anything. But last year, during that call, his daughter lashed out, called him a deadbeat and much worse, said she hated him, that she'd never want to know him. She's 13 now, old enough to know what her words mean, even if her mother planted them. He gave up after that. Neither his daughter nor her mother wanted contact, so he resigned himself to their wishes. A few days ago, everything changed. He got a call. His daughter told a teacher she was being sexually abused at home. CPS intervened, her mother disappeared, and now they want his daughter to come live with us. My husband's instinct is to decline. He insists he has no relationship with her, she can't stand him and makes it clear every chance she gets. We have our own young kids, and no experience handling something so traumatic. He thinks she should go to a foster family trained for situations like this, but I just can't stand the thought, this poor child, abused, abandoned, then rejected by her only family? No. I told him, absolutely not, we will take her in and figure the rest out later. She needs some anchor, some stability, not to be tossed helplessly through the system. But right now, we're not on the same page, and I know deep down he holds the final say. This is his daughter, not mine, I'm just his partner. Still, I can't help but feel he's wrong, that this is a huge red flag, and this is where he needs to step up and be a father. After all of this, I tried to clarify where I'm coming from to myself. My husband and I are a team, a family. My opinion matters. Neither of us knows the foster care system, we're just guessing from what we've heard. I know, too, that my husband was a deadbeat dad in the beginning, and he realizes it as well. He saw too late that he should have tried harder. When visits became possible, his ex would pull tricks, saying he got the dates wrong, not being home, always something. Maybe he could have gone to court, but he gave up. Hindsight is clearer than the present, but none of that changes where we are right now. Mini update, we sat down and talked about why things escalated so badly, not even touching the main issue, but focusing on why we were shouting. He confessed he just felt completely overwhelmed, panicking because the CPS worker basically made it sound like the girl could live with us or go into a system that spits out drug-addicted prostitutes. That guilt is crushing him. He feels responsible for what happened to his daughter, even if she wants nothing to do with him. I was so wrapped up in her pain, I didn't see the depth of his. We agreed to sleep on it, take tomorrow off work, get our facts straight, and talk things through calmly. In the morning. It's nearly 2 a.m. I'm exhausted. I hope with everything in me that soon I'll have a positive update to share. Update 1. I'm not going into all the details, there's so much more happening behind the scenes than I can even begin to share here, but I can assure you that divorce isn't even on the horizon for us. Over the past few days, my husband and I have had some intense, tough conversations. After we pushed through the worst panic, we realized we were a lot more aligned than we'd initially thought. He's stepping up for his daughter and is already looking into emergency custody to make sure she doesn't get lost in the system. We're not pretending to be a perfect, happy family, far from it. What matters right now is taking legal responsibility for her, and making sure she doesn't have to bounce between random guardians and homes anymore. She's not going to live with us, at least for now. We've reached out to an inpatient therapy clinic where she can begin her healing, and my husband is taking a leave of absence from work. He's even leasing a second car to ensure he can be by her side as much as she needs. He fully understands she may never see him as her father or even as family, but from now on, we are her support system. She will never have to rely solely on an overstretched CPS contact, or worry about where she'll end up next. If she needs therapy, we'll get it for her. If she needs a lawyer, we'll make sure she has one. If she needs help navigating the system, we'll be there every step of the way. If she chooses to live with a foster family instead, we'll respect that entirely. We're going to make it clear, our support isn't contingent on her pretending to be part of the family. She never has to cross our doorstep if that's what she wants. We fully accept she might never thank us or even recognize any of this, and that's her right. Our savings are going toward a college fund for her. It won't make her rich, but hopefully it'll give her a start when the time comes. All of this means starting family therapy, not just for us and the kids, who are about to realize they have a sister, but so we can all begin to process and heal. My husband will be starting therapy himself, 2. To sort through the guilt and pain this whole situation has drudged up. This isn't easy. It's not ideal. But it's what we're choosing, together, for her and for us. Update 2. Kind people have reached out to me and offered help and advice, and I want to say thank you for that. I won't go into all the details, but I feel compelled to clarify a few things, both for myself and for anyone who's been following our journey. First of all, we did not send my stepdaughter away to a mental asylum indefinitely. She was with professionals who could make an in-depth assessment of her health and outline a plan for us, while also starting her treatment process. My husband was by her side as much as both Anne and her doctor wanted him to be. Her mom eventually showed up. There is now a criminal investigation underway, and, with the support of her therapist, Anne bravely gave her testimony. I can't even begin to express how proud we are of her. We really hope this can be a stepping stone for her to move forward. Right now, Anne lives with us. We're closely involved with professionals on how to make things work. It's far from perfect, it's hard, it's messy, and it's definitely not what anyone would call fun. But I wouldn't change it for the world. And yes, we involved Anne in every decision, asked her what she wanted at every step. We never forced her to do anything against her will. Last September, after a heated argument with my husband, I found myself needing to reach out for help. His daughter from a previous relationship, Anne, had recently revealed she was Ed, and her mom vanished soon after. So many emotions, so much chaos. People offered so many perspectives that challenged and enlightened me. This update contains both good news and some deeply troubling parts that still haunt me. Even now, I can't believe I have to spell this out. We included Anne in every part of the conversation, every step of the way. How could we not? We spent a small fortune on this. Thankfully we were stable financially, and my in-laws have been a real lifeline, helping however they could. But let me start with the bad news. Eventually, Anne's mom and her boyfriend showed up. There's a trial in the works. I can't go into a lot of detail, but there were moments when I thought my husband was poised to do something drastic in his rage. I know he would go to jail for her, without a second thought. Anne testified, thankfully via video so she did not have to face them in person. Her therapist and the police told us that they suspect Anne had been drugged on some occasions, based on what she revealed in therapy. My husband came home from that meeting shaking with fury, immediately researching how to get a gun, though of course, with toddlers in the house, we did not go that route. Sadly, there is almost zero chance that Anne's mom and her boyfriend will go to jail as long as they deserve, frankly, forever, in my eyes, but it looks like they'll spend at least some time behind bars. Meanwhile, therapy has actually been going better than I dared hope. Anne's therapist facilitated some incredibly tough, but necessary, sessions between Anne and my husband. A lot was said. A lot needed to be said. Now, as I write this, Anne lives with us and has since she felt ready after several weeks in inpatient care. We turned our home office into her room and installed the sturdiest lock we could find on her door, not because we fear her, or she us, but because it's a symbol. She can lock that door whenever she needs. It's hers, and she decides. Our only rules: keep it reasonably clean, and no smoking or drugs. She's invited to meals but never forced, and I always make sure there's enough so she can eat later if she wants. Those first months, we barely saw her, which, according to our family therapist, was to be expected. One of us is always home when the kids are, unless we all go out together. My husband arranged more work from home days to be present for her. We don't force her to interact with her step-siblings, the dynamic is mostly neutral, and that's okay for now. We put in place a rule: no touching others without asking permission. Sometimes the little ones forget in the frenzy of play, but Anne has handled it with such grace. A few weeks ago, our younger son ran to the TV where Anne was watching a show, demanding I put on his favorite, one he's watched about 10,000 times. I told him no, it was Anne's turn, and he had to wait. Without hesitation, and said it was okay, switched the channel, and even watched an episode with him. He was over the moon and begged for another, which she obliged, before I finally had to pry him away so she could return to her own show. I thanked her and reassured her she never had to say yes again if she didn't want to. She told me she really didn't mind. So, right now, she isn't skipping school more than most teenagers. I see her keeping up her daily Snapchat streaks with friends from class. She's saving up for a new iPhone, dreaming about regular things, and, for now, that is enough. Update 3. 2 nights ago someone sat in a car at the end of our cul-de-sac with the engine idling and the lights off. I watched the faint glow of a cigarette tip move in the dark and felt my ribcage trying to crawl out of my body. My husband stood in the window with his jaw clenched so hard I could hear his teeth. We didn't do the movie thing and go outside to yell. We turned on every noisy, boring system we've set up since all of this started. The doorbell camera, the floodlight, the neighbor's porch cam who gave us access, the non-emergency police line. A patrol car rolled through, then another. The idling car peeled off without drama, just taillights shrinking until they were gone. I slept in the hallway outside Anne's door afterward. I don't think she knew. If she did, she pretended not to, which is fine. The next morning her therapist told us what I already suspected: my nerves are not a plan. So we turned the cameras to obnoxiously obvious, positioned a motion light that makes our yard look like a small airport, and my husband called the detective on the case. The boyfriend's bail restrictions were tightened the same day. No contact, no proximity, no anything. The detective told us it may have been some random teenager, or a delivery driver lost and double-checking GPS, and to not go chasing ghosts. My husband nodded the whole time and then bought a bigger flashlight and an air horn. Rage looks stupid when it's helpless. Ours has learned to wear a seatbelt. The bigger news, the good kind that still feels unreal when I type it, the custody hearing went in our favor. My husband has temporary full legal and physical custody pending the outcome of the criminal trial. The judge looked at her over her glasses and asked if she understood that she gets to direct who sees her and when, that no one can make her go anywhere she doesn't want to, and Anne, the kid who has not been more than a murmur in any official room, said yes, clear and even. She squeezed my hand under the table, 3 quick pulses and then one long one, and I squeezed back in the same rhythm, because that has become our way of saying I'm here without calling attention to ourselves. There's a peculiar domesticity to disaster no one tells you about. People think it's dramatic all the time, but mostly it's tampons on the grocery list next to frozen peas, and calling the orthodontist because trauma doesn't move an overbite, and wiping applesauce off a car seat while your husband remembers to breathe next to you. We finally did the thing we kept putting off. We took Anne to an OB/GYN who specializes in trauma care for teens. I have never been more grateful for a kind woman with a calm voice. She explained every instrument and every choice like she was reading a bedtime story, and, when Anne shook her head, she put all of it away without even blinking. We left with lab slips and a plan for later, when and if Anne wanted it, and a prescription for heavier duty ibuprofen because somewhere in this mess she is also a 14-year-old with cramps. And got in the car and turned on her playlist and let me drive in silence while she watched raindrops chase each other down the window. Later that night, she asked my husband if it would be gross if she wanted an implant in her arm so she never had to worry about anything, and he blinked at me like a deer and then said, "It's your body. I'll pay for it and hold your hand if you want me there." She looked at him the way you look at an animal you thought would bite you and didn't. The therapist suggested we give her a cap space that isn't her room to test existing in the common areas without the panic of being visible. If you can believe it, the fix was a chair. We took the ugliest old armchair from my mother-in-law's basement, a navy thing from 1997 with the stubbornness of an anchor, and tucked it into the corner of the living room, angled so she can see the door and not be startled when someone enters. And claimed it like a cat. She dragged a small side table over, lined up her water bottles until they made a little barricade, and has been showing up for 10 minutes at a time, then 20. The little ones are fascinated and very sincerely ignore her in the way toddlers think ignoring looks, which is basically narrating their entire play in a shout. She started doing homework there, in earshot, hoodie up, and sometimes I will look over and realize the TV is off, and she's listening to their nonsense and smiling just with her eyes. We still have catastrophic days. The school assembly about digital citizenship turned into a fire drill in her head when the slideshow flashed a meme she associates with one of the nights she told her therapist about. I was at work. The school counselor called my husband. He left a conference, drove over, and sat in the nurse's office while she breathed into her hands and counted tiles on the ceiling. He didn't touch her. He didn't tell her to talk. He said, "Want me to sit across the room?" And she nodded, and he sat, and they looked at the same HVAC vent for 45 minutes until she said, "I'm hungry," like she hadn't just run a marathon and birthed a volcano. He took her for pancakes, and later I got a photo on my phone of 2 plates drowning in syrup and a fork standing straight up in the middle like a flagpole. It was the first time he'd sent me a picture of her where she'd let her sleeve slide back, and you could see the elastic hair tie she wears on her wrist, white against her skin, normal and teenagerish in a way that made me want to sit on the floor and cry. We bought a cat by accident. Okay, we rescued a cat, but the cat definitely rescued us with the confidence of a small god. Her name at the shelter was Dorito, which is exactly what she is, orange, triangular, and slightly dusty. She chose Anne, walked past every hand stretched out to her and headbutted Anne's shin and yelled. The shelter volunteer said, "She squeaks when she's happy," and Anne made the tiniest unspooling noise I've ever heard. Dorito sleeps on her keyboard. Dorito sits on the back of the ugly navy chair like a gargoyle. Dorito has accepted that toddlers exist and will occasionally cry if they love her too much, and installed a tiny bell on Dorito's collar so she knows when her room is about to be invaded by purring, and to see the two of them co-sleep, one arm tossed over ginger fur, is to believe in reincarnation. And asked to go to a school dance. I thought we had 3 more years before I was steaming a dress in a steamy bathroom and figuring out how to pin a corsage, but here we are, with me in the storage room digging out shoes I wore when I was 22. She didn't want a dress, she wanted black jeans and a black shirt that looks like something you'd see on a French art student, and boots with enough heel to be satisfying without being dangerous. We curled her hair into soft waves that fell out the second we got to the gym, but for 5 minutes she looked like a shampoo commercial. My husband drove her and waited in the parking lot with a paperback he did not read. I told him to go home and he said, "I will when she texts me you good like she does sometimes," and when the text came through 2 hours later, it said, "You good?" And he exhaled like someone had freed his lungs. She came home with glitter on her eyelids and glitter on Dorito and glitter on the ugly chair. The next morning, she showed me a video of her and 2 girls I've never met screaming along to a song that makes no sense to me, and I pretended it did. The maternal grandmother asked for a meeting. We did it in the therapist's office because my spine is not made of steel, and I watched and sit and listen to a woman who shares her cheekbones cry about what she didn't know. I had prepared speeches in my head about how knowing is a verb, about how neighbors knew enough to give us evidence, about how teachers knew enough to make calls when absences sprouted like weeds, about how a grandmother always knows the rhythms of a house. I didn't have to say any of it. Anne folded her hands and said, "I'm not ready," with the composure of a magistrate. We left, and she ate an entire cosmic brownie in the car and then asked if we could go to the plant store. She picked out a pothos because they're hard to kill and named it toothpaste for reasons that never became clear. Toothpaste now lives on the windowsill next to a jar of paintbrushes and one of the little one's Hot Wheels that got lodged there and seems to have turned into a mascot. The therapist asked if Anne wanted to talk about her last name. I braced for a wave. Anne considered it like she was deciding which ear to put an earring in. Then she said, "I don't want to change it, but I want a middle name." She doesn't have one. It hadn't occurred to me that a person could just decide to fill that slot. We told her she could choose any middle name in the world, and she could take a year to decide and change it twice if she wanted. She came to breakfast 2 days later and announced she was thinking about James. My husband choked on his coffee because his middle name is James. He did the dad thing and tried to say, "You don't have to pick mine to make me feel," and she cut him off, deadpan, "It's not for you. It sounds like a spy." So we are in a paperwork limbo where our daughter may or may not be in James, for espionage purposes, and this is somehow the funniest, lightest thing that has happened in months. We did hit a wall no one warns you about, the growth spurt. Not hers, ours. Our toddlers have started announcing at random intervals that Anne is my sister, with the kind of triumphant volume usually reserved for finding the last grape. Yesterday, the little one asked if he could borrow Anne's boots because they make stomps louder. She let him put one on and he fell over like a turtle and everyone laughed, including her. Then, 2 hours later, that same child slammed her bedroom door by accident and Anne went very still and very silent in the living room. No meltdown, just a freeze. We reinstalled a slow close hinge on her door that night. My husband keeps a notebook now of practical solutions to small disasters. It's full of ridiculous things like replace batteries in nightlight and move blender to top shelf, and then right in the middle he has written learn her laugh, which I found when I was looking for the takeout menu. I put the notebook back very carefully because it felt like I'd opened a diary. There was an ugly episode at school I want to mention because it will happen to someone else and I want that someone to know they aren't insane. A boy, 15, with the moral backbone of wet bread, posted a TikTok implying girls make up accusations for attention. He didn't name anyone, but the timing and a particular screenshot of a hall pass made it obvious. It spread the way stupid spreads. One of Anne's friends, braver than sense, brought it straight to the guidance counselor. The school did the right thing. They hauled him in, they called his parents, they required an apology, they made him watch an educational video that was probably terrible but also necessary. Anne asked to see the video, decided it was stupid in its own way, and then showed me a message she'd typed and never sent, a paragraph both ferocious and articulate, quoting statistics and ending with "I hope you grow." She didn't send it. She blocked him and ate a slice of pizza with ranch and then went back to scrolling. I realized I had been clenching every muscle I own waiting to see if she would let it define her. It didn't. Not that one. There is legal stuff I'm not going to get into except to say, we now have a court date that feels like a planet we're orbiting. It changes the gravity of everything. The prosecutor warned us that the defense will try to drag their feet, that postponements are a strategy. We are learning to live with countdowns that turn into count-ups. The only thing that felt final in a good way was the restraining order becoming permanent. I signed the papers as a household member and had to swallow the urge to draw hearts around my name like I'm 12 because the relief made me goofy. Money feels rude to mention, but it is part of this reality. We can afford to keep doing the therapy and the lawyer and the medical specialists. Most people cannot. My in-laws have been bankrolling what insurance won't, and I have never loved anyone more for writing checks and then leaving immediately after a meal because they know we're all wrung out. They did host us last Sunday because my father-in-law wanted to teach Anne to change the oil in a car. He asked with the gentleness of a man approaching a skittish deer. She said yes, and the two of them stood under the raised hood of an old Civic like priests at an altar. She came home smelling like grease and grinning like she'd solved gravity. She told me engines made more sense than people, which, fair. Here is the part I haven't told anyone because it feels like a secret that belongs to us. Anne keeps a small box in her desk. It's the kind you get with a watch, black cardboard, not special. She adds to it the way you add candles to a cake, slowly, marking time. So far it contains the wristband from the dance, a Dorito whisker, a page from a magazine with furniture she circled for one day, and a post-it I stuck to her lunch that said, "You are not responsible for anyone's joy but your own." I found the box because Dorito knocked it off the desk in the night and everything spilled, and I put it back without touching any of it and then came downstairs and cut my thumb on the foil of the coffee because my hands were shaking. This is the kind of progress no therapist can chart, not a letter grade, not a diagnosis moving columns, just a collection of proof that a life is being made. We still mess up. I thought I was being the cool, supportive stepmom when I suggested we go to the flea market Saturday, just the two of us, and she agreed and then ghosted me the morning of. I felt like a teenager stood up by a prom date. I started to feel resentful and then caught myself, I'm not owed her Saturdays. That afternoon she slid into the kitchen and opened the fridge and said, "Sorry," with a smallness I recognized from my own childhood. I told her that next time I'd like a text and she nodded, and the world kept spinning. Later that night she came out to the living room where my husband and I were arguing in the tired, ordinary way married people do about whether the dishwasher was loaded insane or insane adjacent, and she said, with full teenage sarcasm, "Maybe the plates are traumatized," and my husband made the kind of face that proves genetics is real. "Oh, one more enormous thing," and asked if she could see her birth certificate. I said sure, because it's hers, and printed a copy because I refused to hand over the only one we have. She sat there at the table tracing the letters of her first name, her last name, the blank middle. Then she looked up and said she wanted a key. Not to her room, she already has that, but to the front door. My husband put his head down on the table, his whole body doing a silent laugh cry. I got up, got the spare, and gave it to her on a lanyard. She put it over her head and tucked it under her shirt like it was a necklace she wasn't ready to show. The next morning when I came downstairs, I saw the cutout of a cereal box on the counter with a rectangle carefully sliced out where the toy prize would be. She'd made a fake key to tape to the inside of her history notebook, in case school freaks out, she said. She isn't wrong, schools love to freak out about nothing while missing the main thing. I said I'd write her a note. I did, and for the first time it felt fun to sign my name as parent/guardian instead of like I was forging a part of someone's life. We are not fixed. We are building something in the middle of the mess. Yesterday, Anne came home with a clay bowl from art class, lopsided and glazed a color that can only be described as swamp. She handed it to me and said, "It's for your rings when you do the dishes," with that deflecting posture she uses right before something vulnerable. I pretended to evaluate it with the seriousness of an art critic. Then I put my wedding band and the cheap gold stacking ring that turns my finger green into the swamp and set it by the sink like it belonged there all along. Late last night I found my husband in the kitchen, holding the bowl like it was made of spun sugar. He took his ring off and set it down in the swamp next to mine, then took a picture and texted it to her, even though she was upstairs, even though we are ridiculous. She texted back 3 dinosaur emojis and then the side-eye face. Progress, apparently, speaks emoji now. I don't know what the next week will bring, whether the date will move again, whether the idling car was nothing or something, whether the dishwasher will ever be loaded correctly, but I know this. The lock on her door clicks and I feel relief instead of fear. The cat's bell rings and my shoulders drop. The ugly navy chair has an indent with her shape. She's here. We are here, and for now, that is enough.